Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, and good morning to you all. It's August 7th, and I have to start the program with an abject apology. I feel just mortified. Yesterday, I did a rant. Ryan, come in, but give me a second, because I have to do something that people in our profession have to do every once in a while. That's called a correction. I'm just mortified. I mean, in my 40 years in broadcasting, believe me, I've said things that are incorrect before, but geez, I really mucked up yesterday. I accused, oh dear, I feel so awful about it, but let me just correct it. I accused Toni Morrison of being an anti-Semite, and I was so mixed up. I had mixed her up with Alice Walker, who is an anti-Semite. And when she dies, I won't bother saying anything, okay? But boy, do I owe Toni Morrison an apology. I owe you all an apology for spreading that misinformation. And I thank 2 or 3 or 4 of you who got back to me and said, Lynn, you think you're mixing up Toni Morrison and Alice Walker, which is what I do with bands. You know, I attribute songs to the wrong bands. I attribute books to the wrong authors. And somehow, in my dotage, I screwed this up. I'm embarrassed, really. So, because I was so sure and I was so vociferous. So I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. All right, Ryan, come on in here. Don't you have to, on occasion?
Yes. Yeah, I was going to.
But you can do it in print. It's
easier.
Yeah.
You don't have to face people as much. I try to do it on Twitter when I also make mistakes. I think it's pretty. I mean, it happens. It's one of those things, and I think really it's about the response, right? It's about like recognizing the mistake, owning it,
right?
You know, calling it out. You know, kind of saying those things, and I think that's the difference.
Well, I mean, that's the best you can do, but often the people who hear the correction are not the people who heard the
correct.
And
yeah, it never gets amplified to the same level.
No, so you've done damage.
Yes.
Yeah, and I am so mortified. I think that's the right word. I just felt mortification when I realized it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway. Ryan's here a little early on this Wednesday because we've got another guest coming in the second half hour.
Double booked today.
Yeah, this is most unusual. She's going to be an interesting.
What is she talking about?
Well, she grew up in, I think, Tarentum. Is that a possibility? Tarentum?
Oh,
yes.
Oh yeah, sure. Here, like up in the Alakiski Valley. Yeah.
She grew up in Tarentum. Queer and Jewish.
Oh, okay.
Which would be a strange thing to be in Tarentum, either or, not to mention both.
I would think so in Tarentum,
right?
Yeah.
And she is now, she's a choreographer, a dancer. She did 2 years as a stripper downtown.
Oh, okay.
So she has this pretty
interesting
bio, and she'll be performing at with Off the Wall Productions in Carnegie.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. They always do such amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, Moriah Ella, what's the last name? Mason will be coming. It's not a Jewish name. Mariah is, I think. Maybe it's a queer name. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, you. We got a lot we want to talk about.
Yeah, hit me.
This New York Times today really upset me. Did you know that the Democratic Socialists of America,
I know them. Yes, I know them.
I know you do.
Yes.
I think he's a fellow traveler, actually, if you want to know the truth.
I'm not registered any political group, but yes.
Oh, okay. The sympathizer.
Sure, that's fair.
Which I am on occasion, too. Democratic Socialism America, and, they've enjoyed some success.
Especially in Pittsburgh, honestly.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot, actually.
They endorsed OCS. I mean, AOC.
AOC.
I can't get it right. You know what
AOC
I'm
is probably
thinking?
the most high-profile person to have backing, early
Yes.
backing from the
No,
Democratic
you said
Socialists.
OCS. AOC.
AOC.
Oh, I thought you said OCS.
I don't think so. Maybe I did. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
And couldn't she just be named Sally Smith so I would be able to remember it?
Luckily, I'm from California, so I don't have any problem with the Hispanic names.
You know, I was getting on Trump and Biden the other day for getting the place names wrong of where the latest atrocities were, and I thought, they might be too old. And then when I did the Alice Walker, Toni Morrison thing, I thought, uh-oh.
Happens to the best
and
of
now
us.
OCS, SOC, I get this wrong all the time. And Trump, Biden, and I are all in our 70s.
Oh, there you go. Oh, wow. 3 peas in a pod. Am I right?
Well, speaking of somebody else in their 70s, Sanders is the darling of
the Democratic Socialists. Yeah, he kind of popularized the term Democratic Socialist, you could argue, in America at least.
So they had their convention, I guess, this week in Atlanta, I think.
Yeah.
And shockingly, they endorsed
Sanders?
Yes.
Oh. You
I was
said
being
shockingly. I thought
I
they
was
got
being
they're going to throw a
sarcastic.
boomerang at me.
Yeah, okay. They endorsed Sanders, but
Okay.
here's the thing I want to...
Okay, go ahead.
Do you know where this is going?
No, I have no idea.
They then passed a resolution saying that they will not officially endorse anyone else, regardless of who the Democratic nominee is. And here is, for DSA, it is Bernie or bust.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Jesus H. God, this is why I hate the left. I hate them. Even though I'm a, bedfellow on many, I hate them.
Yeah, you are.
I hate their friggin' factionalism.
Well, let's talk about this, though.
What is the most important thing that we Americans have to do in the next, in November of 2020? What is the most important thing?
Well, for the left, it would be defeating Trump, right?
Well, not them, apparently.
Well, okay. Well, let's talk about
They're
this.
saying
right?
they won't. Okay,
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that
means a lot of
it
things.
doesn't mean that a member of the DSA can't. But they're telling this is what is on. Even Bernie Sanders said he'll work like hell, although I doubt it. To elect.
He held rallies for Hillary, to be fair. I went to one here in Pittsburgh. There were hundreds of people there. So I think, they're a political group. They can do whatever they want. That's like their prerogative to endorse or not endorse or pass resolutions or not pass resolutions. But I think
who brought us Trump?
That's a very complicated.
Okay,
question.
but I can tell you. If you took all the people who voted, who couldn't vote because they hated Hillary and didn't go to the polls when they would normally vote for a Democrat, you add to them the fools who voted for Jill Stein and the people who, I even met one, who were Bernie people who voted for Trump in protest. If you look at Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
77,000
That does
votes.
it. So it's people. They gave Trump the White House,
but who are those people,
Just
though?
like Nader voters in Florida gave it to Bush.
Sure, but I mean, we could analyze who those voters are, and you could say that getting a DSA vote for having the DSA endorse Hillary would that have helped those people on the fence that were like, oh, I don't know if I like Hillary, I don't know if I like Trump? Would that have helped or hurt? I don't know. That's an important question to ask, because really, I think the margins, at least in Pennsylvania, like the people who help like that hold the key votes are usually in the suburbs, right?
And supposedly, but it's not,
Yeah.
When it's that close, it's people also
Sure.
not voting. Because
sure.
they're guys.
Yeah. But I mean, turnout was pretty high, actually, in the thing. And really what boosted Trump was his rural turnout. He really crushed it in terms of getting rural people, non-voters who don't vote, in the same way that Obama got non-voters who don't vote in urban areas to come out and vote. And so... yes, it's complicated. I totally understand people, get mad at the DSA, all this stuff. But I will say that the DSA is very strict with their endorsements. I think that's even the local chapter is pretty strict with their endorsements. That doesn't mean that DSA members aren't going to go and help and campaign for Democratic candidates when the time comes. And I think they did that even in some of the local elections that happened here, whether or not they're helping out someone like Betsy Monroe, who lost her race in the suburbs, the state rep, and like all those things. So, yes, I understand the frustration over endorsements, but I will say that
it's really not the endorsements.
Yeah.
It's that they.
Oh, it's the resolution to not endorse.
It's the resolution that is sort of...
well, yeah, but think about it.
That clearly tells their people
I think
that only our guy, and then we fold the tent.
But that's how the Green Party works too, right?
Well, fuck the Green Party too!
I think there's a lot of studies that show that the Green Party people are just always going to be Green Party people. No matter what, they're just going to come out and vote for their Green Party candidate. That's why they're in the party. Why else would they be in the party if they didn't vote for them?
I bet the Green Party sort of would like this Inslee, the global warming guy, Washington State governor, right?
I have no idea.
I mean, he's as green as they come.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what he said the other day. And I read this on the air yesterday because I really like what he said. Mm-hmm. He was asked if, with this fractious primary winnowing period we're in, that how much damage is it going to do, and is it going to prevent Democrats from coming together in the general election and work like hell to get Trump out? Here's what he said. We've got the most unifying gravitational force outside of a black hole. And that's a white nationalist in the White House.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I want all these green guys and DSA guys to take that to heart.
Yeah. But I think they will, though. I think they're going to come out.
I've watched these purists mess up Democrats in national elections so many times that I don't have your sense of,
well, I'm just really confident Trump's going to lose. So that's why, because I just...
So you figure he's so awful that they can...
He's so
they
unpopular.
Can sit it
He's so unpopular.
Well, because you live in a bubble.
No, I don't, because I follow the polls. He's so unpopular in our state. It's remarkable. And then you follow the 2018 election and what happened with milquetoast candidates like Governor Wolf. Sorry, Governor Wolf, but you're a milquetoast candidate. And
this is true.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about him role as a governor. Just talking about just a political candidate. He kind of skated. He crushed. It wasn't even close. We had a Trump acolyte running in the form of Scott Wagner for governor, and he didn't even come close. So I think in the way I talk about this a decent amount, but in the way that when Obama won in 2008, he won by 10 million votes, which is a lot. In 2012, he won by 5 million votes, right? So he lost 5 million votes. And then in key states, he won by 2 million. And so basically he had this 2 million vote cushion. Trump only has a 77,000 vote cushion. It's so small. It's remarkably small. And in the states that he needs to win, he's been underwater basically his whole term. So I'm just confident that I think any Democrat was going to beat him, honestly. But not to say to like don't go vote, obviously, but I think enough people are there's just gonna be a natural pushback that is gonna happen in the same way there was a natural pushback against Obama, but he had such a bigger cushion that he still was able to win easily or fairly easily. And so I think a lot of this stuff is that, one, the primary is way too long. It's ridiculous.
Oh, my God. It's unbelievable.
But, I mean, it's causing us to get worried. It's causing Democrats and liberals on the left to basically, like, start fighting against each other because they're so worried about what's going to happen because it's not going perfectly them in every moment, you know? Do we remember the Republican primary, by the way?
Are you calling me a snowflake?
That's right.
It does. It goes on to this country is so fucked up. Wait,
but it's the media, though. It's the media, though.
Well,
I mean, I know. I'm a member of the media.
The media is a contributing factor to our fucked upness. Yes. Not you, of course, and not Pittsburgh City paper. But
people would argue that it's true.
Right.
But yeah.
Jesus.
But yeah, so it's really crazy. But yeah.
Okay, I sent myself something that's not showing up here.
Okay.
And it was some quote from Republican senator from Pennsylvania, Toomey.
Patrick Toomey,
who is only in office because of the state Democratic Party's stupidity. But let's not get into that.
He's actually a decent campaigner, to be perfectly fair.
Screw that weasel.
I'm not.
Do
a
you
fan
know
of
what
his,
I'm talking about? He actually.
Oh, the assault. On the assault weapons. I think we actually might have just published something.
Okay, find that quote. If this is not a profile in sheer self-centered cowardice. Okay.
Are we talking about that we can't ban assault weapons because they're too popular? Is that what we're talking about?
Something, yeah, that was sort of the general.
Yes, yeah. He
said,
Fox
I'm
News.
not going to. He literally said, I can't vote again. Do you see it?
I got the quote here. So he says, of assault weapons, he says, they're extremely popular, and so to ban an extremely popular firearm, I'm not going to support that. That would be an infringement on the rights of law-abiding citizens. So this is quite the profile and courage for Pat Toomey. But he's also wrong. I just want to say that in terms of the popularity of an assault weapon ban in his own state, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, what is that? The polls show.
The polls show
we
that
don't want 'em.
It's actually popular to ban assault weapons.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was a.
So again, no, they have
poll.
These talking points that are just friggin' lies.
68% of registered voters support banning assault weapons in Pennsylvania. So yes, but
you trafficking in facts.
Yeah.
How retro of you.
Well, it's also interesting because Pat Toomey has been what you would, I guess, if you took a step back and looked at it, one of the more stringent Republicans. I mean, not that
but he
not that Republicans are stringent at all, but I mean, like, he's been calling for some gun reforms, basically background checks at gun shows and for online purchases, which is kind of weak, but I mean, like, in terms of where the Republican Party is, he's basically the only Republican senator, maybe along with Susan Collins, who even want to call for anything. But that's what makes this statement even more obtuse, in my opinion, because it's like, oh, so you want to do this, but you don't even want to discuss this other option. And, like, what does popularity mean?
I know. What does popularity mean?
Like, oh, popularity with people who buy guns because they like to shoot them? Like, but that's not all your constituents. And that's literally how Pat Toomey has always acted. Like, oh, well, the people who come out and support me, that's who I care about. But, like, he represents all of the state.
Well, Toomey is basically, he's a Republican because of the money stuff. He's a Republican.
Yeah, he used to run the
Club for Growth.
Club for Growth.
I mean, he is just...
He's a trickle-down economic Republican.
Capitalist,
yes. To the core.
Yeah. So that's why he's there. But his party doesn't in any way echo, all of the principles of the Club for Growth in other ways.
No, and actually...
fiscal conservatism and deficit and debt relief and all of this. And he still stays with them.
But, I mean, in his fairness, he does, in terms of the fiscal stuff, he does vote pretty often to vote against, like, any kind of, like, raising of the thing. He has been very, look, I mean, believe me, I'm trying, I feel like I'm defending Pat Toomey.
You are!
Hey, I just wrote a story about his embarrassing remarks. But I mean, in terms of, he's been pretty critical of the, tariffs and those are the things. And I think there needs to be some credit where credit's due. But at the same time, he doesn't really take a huge stand on these things. He doesn't block legislation to get his priorities through. He just kind of likes to, it's a little bit of lip service of like, oh, well, I do this too. But I mean, his remark about the assault weapon bans is just like in addition to being,
well, it's an abdication of leadership.
Yes.
It is a total fold, and it's you would think he'd be embarrassed, whatever. What else were we going to talk about? Because the thing you sent me isn't here either. Nothing's here.
Yeah, we could talk about if we want to talk about dumb Republican senators or former ones. Rick Santorum said some pretty stupid stuff too.
Oh my God! Do you know he showed up in a dream of mine the other night?
Like
it was
nightmare.
like frightening. I know, it was just frightening. All of a sudden, there was Santorum, and
I just don't understand why CNN
Why do they-
pays
why do-
him.
yeah, why do they-
He doesn't say anything of value. Like, I don't understand. Oh, it makes me so frustrated that we have all these pundits that basically just share their opinions on politics when they are done. Like, Santorum doesn't have any influence over anything.
None.
Like, why does it
I
matter
don't
what
know.
he says?
You know what? I don't want to hear what he says.
Yeah, it's fine. Go to citypaper.com and
I really
PJs.
don't.
But
What?
we could talk about the DA race, Allegheny County DA race. We
Oh,
wanna
that's
talk
right.
about that.
That's right. So I'm a little okay. So the district attorney here has been the district attorney here for
20 plus years.
20 plus years, and he is being challenged now by an independent.
Yes.
Which, of course, I'm sure is not causing him too much lack of sleep.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Her name is
Lisa Middleman.
If I get any name right,
we're gonna.
I know, really.
We're gonna see more. I think we're gonna see more of that. But yeah, go ahead.
Middleman.
Yes.
Okay. And I know that I was at this lefty kind of event the other day, and I signed.
Oh, you were there? I was there too. I covered that. I didn't see you. Oh man, should have.
I signed papers for her.
Yeah.
I guess, was there something I was signing about her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
As a voter.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
got she
To get on the ballot.
Yeah, she turned in 11,000 petitions. She said she only needed 4,000. So
Okay,
there's significant support
Okay.
for her.
Well, I signed it because I always believe anybody should be able to be on the ballot.
Yeah.
I always sign those.
Yeah, unless you're a
things.
Nazi or something, but.
My next guest is here, so I'm just
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
I'm just forgetting.
I don't care.
But no, we got
you got a few
5
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
So, but you dug up or came out with this.
Yeah, there was a story about
Shocking thing.
Zapala. It's actually been a very spicy campaign, I think, for the first couple weeks. I wrote about a Stephen Zapala who doesn't like campaigning, who has been on the record many times saying he doesn't like to campaign. He thinks it's like he kind of thinks it's like beneath the position, I would say, and that it's more about like what his role is as the DA, but it is an elected office, so everyone has to campaign. It's not an appointed office. And so he doesn't like campaigning, but his first campaign event, I guess, was with this young Republican group in Allegheny County. And remember, he's a Democrat.
Yes.
So he is on both ballots, to be fair, because he got enough write-in votes to be on the Republican and the Democratic ballot. But he's always been a Democrat. He's always run as a Democrat. He's always registered as a Democrat.
Yeah, so he meets with these young Republicans.
So he meets with these young Republicans. This young Republican group is controversial, to say the least. They got in trouble a few months ago for spreading fake news about Dan Gilman holding up a walk away sign, which is #walkaway, which is this really stupid far-right movement that is like, oh, look at all these Democrats leaving the party. It's totally bull crap. But so this group, so he met with this group at the same time. A couple days before that, he skipped out on a Democratic Party event where a bunch of people in McCandless got to meet with a bunch of candidates, either local candidates. Connor Lamb was there. State Senator Lindsey Williams was there. Rich Fitzgerald was there.
So what do you make of this?
I don't understand what his campaign is doing. I think it's really weird to have a Democratic DA skip out on a Democratic event, but
Well,
then
he
meet
figures-
with a young Republican event, especially one so controversial. And I didn't put this in the story, but it's pretty common knowledge that this young Republican group is run by the girlfriend of his son, Steven Zappala. Who
Wait a minute.
Who is running his campaign basically at
Wait a
this
minute,
point.
wait. Okay,
Yeah.
my head just exploded.
Yeah.
You're saying Zappala's son,
Steven Zappala.
Junior.
No, it's a Steven with a V instead of a PH.
Oh,
Yeah,
for Christ's
It's weird.
Okay. Stephen with a V, his son,
Yes.
runs the
No, his son runs his campaign now.
and
It used to be run by Erin McClellan, who was a Democratic candidate.
yeah, but what?
But
what?
she got kicked out, basically.
Okay.
And for some reason, I have no idea why. It's stupid. But now Steven, or Stevie, is basically running his campaign. He is dating and has been for a while.
Oh, he's dating
the head of this young Republican group. So it's like this weird thing where it's almost kind of like Steven's. I mean,
All right,
sorry, the
okay,
DA's Apollo.
I can't. I can't.
So it's really odd. But anyway, even just meeting with this group I think it's controversial because this group is like pro-Trump, like spreading false news about Mayor Peduto, mocking Mayor Peduto, like all these things. Like how is that? I just think that's really interesting considering like there's way more Democrats in Allegheny County than there are Republicans, and this is a Democratic DA, so he's kind of spurning that. But
I don't understand anything anymore.
But at the same time, too, Lisa Middleman got into some hot water, too, about some past comments she had about
About when she was
jury selection.
when she was
a public defender, like back
public
in the 90s.
defender.
Yeah, back in the 90s.
It's a long time. It's almost 30 years
yeah,
ago.
Yes, it was like 30 years ago.
And so she would have been extremely young, just starting out. But she did say what today, see, this is what, she was keeping black jurors off the jury.
She was arguing to the judge that black jurors would be that like shouldn't sit on the jury for this
wouldn't be
case.
good for this case for her client.
Yes.
But she said things like, I don't want some fat
black
woman who hates me because I'm a blonde good-looking babe or something.
Skinny white woman.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is the most repulsive thing to say.
Yeah.
I can't even. I read that and thought, well, fuck you too.
I will say that like it sounded having met Middleman too like before, it sounded like her claims of like she was being satirical. I'm not defending the comments because they suck, but like but in terms of like her claims of being satirical, she is a satirical person. But
doesn't read well.
Yeah, well, and I think it's funny too. I will say this because I'm very critical of the media in our area. The Middleman story about the comments, which again are 30 years old, made every newspaper, right? Whereas my story about Zappala, only us
didn't.
Even though I will give credit to WESA because they linked and mentioned our story in their story, but WESA broke the story, and then TV News
only picks up.
I hate when they do this because KDK is like, KDK investigates, or WTA investigates. You didn't investigate this. This was a WESA story. Stop it. Like, oh, I hate it. Like, you didn't do anything.
Hey, coming from television news myself, I must say, that's how they operate. If we didn't have steal stories. That's
at least give us credit. No, that's all I care about. I don't care about aggregating. Give us credit.
I have always given credit, but you bet it's disgusting.
Yeah.
All right, buddy, your time is up.
Time is up.
You apologist for Pat Toomey and
I feel like I apologize for the DSA.
You
for
did. You
Pat
apologize
Toomey,
for everybody.
For Lisa
the
Middleman,
Green
for
Jill
Steven
Stein.
Zappala.
I mean, my God, out! Get out! And tell that lovely woman to come in.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, this is our next guest. Oh my God, God help you. Hi, nice to meet you. It's a little weird,
nice to meet you.
Not to have had a chance to talk before, but this is choreographer. Now let me get this: Moriah Ella Mason.
Perfect.
I got it. And
got
see,
it.
we've been talking about my inability to remember names, to get them right, and all this kind of stuff. So, you've got a big opening tomorrow.
I do.
Well, tell us about that first, and then I got to get into your story, which I find fascinating. But tell us about your...
Absolutely. So my show is called Queer Jewish, Dancing in Diaspora, and it's a collection of dances and storytelling that's exploring the intersections of queer identity and Jewish identity.
And you would know?
And I would know, or at least I would have one perspective as a queer Jewish American woman. And everyone in the cast who's been part of the creative process with me is either queer or Jewish or queer and Jewish. And we've been working with members of the community throughout the process.
Wow. So so this is all dance, or no, there is more than dance. Is there spoken word?
Yeah.
And what tell us.
So it's primarily dance, but we do also have some text and storytelling. So when you come see the show, you'll hear an interview that I do with myself. So you'll hear sort of an autobiographical version of me talking to myself about what these identities mean to me. And you'll also hear some storytelling by Olivia Devora Tucker, who is our actor and dramaturg. And they've been doing a lot of really deep research into Jewish folklore and sacred text and ritual for us, and have been assisting the creative process in that way. So they'll be providing some context, some stories, and sharing some of the ideas behind the movement throughout the piece.
The movement, meaning the dance movement.
Yes,
I'm thinking,
yes, meaning
now
the
there's
dance
a movement?
movement.
Okay, the dance movement. So if people, I mean, there is an audience for dance, right? And how do you pull somebody in who's not used to necessarily going to a dance performance that might be very much interested in this intersection you're doing of Jewishness and queerness in the diaspora? How do you get them to know that, no, really, through movement, a lot can be said?
Yeah, so a lot definitely can be said through movement. And I think for folks who are interested in queer identity and in Jewish identity, they're going to see things from their experience within our movement. You're going to see us building really beautiful dance out of gestures quoted from the way Jews tend to pray, bobbing, swaying, bowing. We really draw on that as a source of movement. You'll also see us getting down the way we would at a queer dance party, the way we would at Sappho. So I think people will see movements that they identify with. And I think what is really brilliant about dance that I hope people can see and experience is its ability to capture what is a bit ephemeral and the types of emotions and insights that aren't able to be verbalized until you first really fully experience them in your body.
Wow. You just verbalized that very, very, very well.
I've been practicing.
So, geez. So the juxtaposition of, this, what, Hasidic men, I'm thinking more of the sort of like this kind of praying that they do. I mean, I'm a Jew. I don't do this.
Well,
And then also this sort of sexual stuff coming in. I would think that those Orthodox men being Orthodox would be appalled.
I mean, they might be. I think that there's a lot of tension within the Jewish community about the place of LGBTQ folks within our communities. And a lot of Reform and conservative synagogues have been becoming more inclusive and open over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And there is some traction and push for that inclusivity within some Orthodox communities, but that's very new. But yeah, I mean, I do definitely you see Hasidic men praying in the way I described, but I grew up in a Reform synagogue. My dad and I grew up bobbing and swaying all the time.
It's
something that, as I've talked to a lot of other young Jews who have grown up in a range of movements within the Jewish community, that they do immediately identify with in some way. So that is part of like, it just comes out of my really personal experience of that.
You grew up in
Trafford.
I don't just Tarentum, Trafford. I knew it was a T. That's a small town.
It's a small town.
And, you know, my first reaction is, what, a Jew in Trafford?
Yeah.
And there was a synagogue?
No. Yeah, no. I, as far as I know, in my experience, we were the only Jewish family, and I was the only Jewish kid in my town and school district growing up.
Wow. Wow. I thought I had because I grew up in a small town as well. And, but I had, there were about 10 other kids my age that were Jewish in this town. Yeah. So but still, that we made such a tiny little minority. But so there you are, a minority of one.
Yes. It was a really difficult experience.
In what way though? Because was your family religious?
My family was religious. So we kept Shabbat. We went to shul every week in Monroeville, where there's a few synagogues and a more substantial Jewish population. I went to Hebrew school. I was bat mitzvahed. All of that was really important to me. But yeah, it was difficult in the town I grew up with because it's pretty conservative Christian. And so I just experienced a lot of anti-Semitism when I was growing up, especially in middle school, as so many of my peers were all becoming more devout Christians. And,
in middle school, they became more. I thought in middle school, you're supposed to go the other direction.
At least not in my town. And at least not if you were like a nerdy honors student, like I was. That was like most of the kids I was hanging out with. Yeah, people got really serious about youth group and a type of conservative Christianity that included a lot of anti-Semitism and homophobia. And so I kind of experienced the range from well-intentioned classmates who were just very concerned about my soul and that I was going to hell, to others who were frustrated that I had killed Jesus.
I have been so accused as well. Yeah.
And then, there were just like a few other, young kids who were really experimenting with some neo-Nazi language and would offer death threats. And it was something I didn't take incredibly seriously at the time because it felt so ridiculous for another kid to be saying those things to me. Feels a little different now.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you tell your parents about this?
I don't think I did. Yeah.
You didn't want to worry them, or it was just so you excuse the metaphor, you bore this cross quietly. And you held it.
I complained, for sure. I complained. But I think that I didn't want to take it seriously, and I knew telling my parents would mean I was taking it more seriously, and it felt easier to just brush it off.
Okay, so you're growing up the only Jew in God knows, the entire town, and subjected to this ignorance and hate. And were you aware even as a child that you were also different in your sexuality?
Not at all.
Well, was that probably good or not?
I think that it was probably helped me get through that time in my life. As I was getting into high school, other students started to tease me about being a lesbian, and I was like, I am not a lesbian. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I think that it was just too difficult and scary to take on being two marginalized identities in that community. And also because I am bisexual, I'm attracted to people of all different genders. I was also very confused because growing up in the section of, small town Pennsylvania I was in, there was sort of a conception of being gay or lesbian. There was sort of, a conception of straightness, and there wasn't a lot of talk about bisexuality. So,
welcome to most of our our childhoods.
Yeah,
No.
I think it's different for a lot of kids growing up now, but at the time I just was very confused that I could have
you poor
crushes on
kid.
boys and girls.
You poor kid. But it didn't screw you up totally, huh? Did you go?
I
So
hope not.
the nerdy kid went off to college?
Yeah, I went off to college in New York. Where
Went to
Sarah
Sarah
Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good choice, though.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great school for me.
Yeah.
And it was suddenly being in a very different context where it felt like everyone was Jewish pretty much. So yeah, it was just like, I think really showed me how the experience of being Jewish can be really different in America depending on what context you're in.
Exactly. I always tell the Jews who grew up here in the city in Pittsburgh, you don't have a clue about what it is to be a Jew because you have this big community around you, and that is not the reality of a Jew in the world.
I mean, I think what I would push back on that about is I think that there's just no one reality of being a Jew in the world. And I think where we have formed really vibrant communities where people don't feel isolated is a meaningful and important part of being Jewish. And also being sometimes the lone Jew in a different place gives you another perspective that's also valuable. And while it's been very formative in ways that have been important for me to have experienced that type of outsiderness and exclusion, I also don't want to define my experience of Judaism by bigotry. That's not all it is. There's also like a lot of joy. There's also the communities I found as an adult. And that's something that's been really important in the creation of Queer Jewish is that we're not just focusing on the types of traumas both these communities have experienced. We're also looking at our celebrations, our humor, all the things that we've contributed. I mean, queer people and Jewish people, as well as, a lot of other marginalized communities in the U.S., like African Americans, like we make culture.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's so true. Our culture invariably comes from marginalized communities. Why is that? Because they're suffering more. There's kind of a what is it? Because it is so true.
I don't think it's just that they're suffering. I think it's that when you're navigating as an outsider or minority, there's just daily life requires a certain type of creativity and a certain type of boldness. And I think that that's part of the reason. I think also people who are in diaspora end up mixing up cultures in new and innovative ways. And whether that diaspora is incentivized by, economic opportunity or by fleeing violence and persecution or through something as horrific as the slave trade, once people are in diaspora, they find ways to build really beautiful new cultures. And I think that should always be a source of pride.
And even when the majority sort of keeps them at bay or, marginalizes them, they sure do love the art that is created, right?
For sure. I mean, right? That's what we see with a lot of the history of cultural appropriation. And I think that's a conversation that I think gets a lot of people really afraid. But I think what's really important to focus on is just who is benefiting from their creative labor. And as long as we're really focusing on that, I think that's a good guidance for how to engage with all these syncretic and diasporic cultural products in a way that's going to be ethical. But it does require more thought because a lot of that had been previously co-opted by the power structure.
True. Wow. So I have to admit, when I first saw your bio, the thing that leapt out at me was, she was a stripper? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, I'm a woman of a certain age, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
A Jewish stripper?
We happen.
I guess you do. So this is after Sarah Lawrence?
Yes.
So wait a minute. God! Well, did you, back to your parents, did your parents know you were a stripper?
Eventually, after I had been doing it for a while, I told them. It wasn't their favorite thing to find out.
No, I bet not.
What
brought you to that?
I mean, have you heard of the student loan crisis?
Wow. That is it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
I hear that all the time, that if you go to a strip club and you'll find graduate students.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no one reason that someone decides to enter stripping or some other type of sex work, but primarily there's something economic going on. And so sometimes it's people paying for the education they've already received. Sometimes it's people saving up for education they'd like to have. And sometimes it's people who are just realizing, you know, they need a job that's flexible. Maybe they're struggling with some disabilities and can't get a normal job. Or they need something that's like very day by day. Other people are trying to support kids, and it just, you can make so much more in a shift, and it's variable, but you have the opportunity to make what ends up being a much higher hourly than you would get at most other jobs, even with a college degree at this point.
I am so curious about, so you, the other women that you then met, give me so you just gave us some sense of where they're coming from, a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Probably different reasons. And, but some women who are in need couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. So I think in particular stripping, there is policing by the establishments about how you look, you know. I think a much wider variety of body types can be marketable at a strip club, but it's not infinite. So that's like one element. It is also physically demanding and emotionally and psychologically demanding. And so it's really important when you're doing that type of work to think about, how are you going to take care of yourself? How are you going to hold boundaries? How are you going to protect yourself from clients who get too handsy, or from pressure by management? It's a really difficult industry, so I wouldn't encourage anyone to enter it lightly. But I also respect the many different reasons people do enter the industry, and I think it's just reflective of how our economy works.
You know, when I first sort of became a feminist back in the 60s, I remember having this fierce debate with a woman who said that strippers and sex workers were feminists, when I thought the idea of being a feminist was you would never, ever, let your body be objectified like that, or you would never, ever play into everything that I thought was, and it's taken me literally decades to start to understand I'm serious. It just blows my mind that for some women, there's a sense of incredible empowerment.
I mean, yeah. So for me, there was at times a sense of empowerment, and I think it could shift a lot depending on the way I was experiencing power in that job day by day. But there's a few ways that I think about it as being younger and more of a third wave feminist.
Right.
I think about the fact that my body is going to be objectified whether I want it to be or not, all the time, whether I'm trying for it to be or not. And it can feel really powerful to enter a situation where you're saying, this is the place where I am allowing people to objectify my body. I'm staging it in a particular way. I'm putting it into that context, and I am going to profit off of it. And in many ways, the experiences I had with customers at strip clubs, I think allowed them to have an enjoyable experience, a fun fantasy, to appreciate, an objectified beauty, and were very respectful. It was, more respectful than many dates I've been on. So I think there's a way of feeling like we can use our body as tools, and people do that through a lot of different types of labor. Any type of physical labor is using your body as a tool for money, to sustain yourself. And I think stripping and other types of sex work are really the same thing.
So you were a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was going to say, well, how do you even learn how to strip? But you're a
Yeah.
dancer. So
Yeah.
I bet you were a good stripper. I mean, in that you would feel comfortable using your body, and you would have,
I think I was I think I was good at
Did you
dancing
have
on
a
the stage.
stripping name?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You're not going to share.
Yeah, I'm not going to share it right
Okay,
now.
okay. But you worked just in here, downtown Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
or-
yeah. I worked at a few different clubs around the city, but mostly I was at the downtown club that was named Blush at the time I was
Oh,
there.
yeah, okay. But Blush is still around, isn't it?
I think it got sold, so it has a
Okay.
different ownership and name, and I don't know a ton about what it's like now.
Wow. Boy, things have changed. I mean, incredible. So, did you encounter other Jewish strippers? No.
Not that I know of. I mean, absolutely some of the other strippers might have been Jewish, but we never talked about it.
What do strippers talk about?
I think people mostly talk about like, how's it going tonight? Like, have you had people will share like if they had a bad experience with a customer. Just kind of small talk for the most part.
How much are you protected by the ownership of these places in regard to
Yeah.
the customers? I mean,
It can be extremely variable.
wow.
Yeah. So some places and some managers are really good about watching their cameras, noticing what's going on, and some places are not as good. And there's probably a lot of lawsuits you can look up.
Did you ever fear for your life or
Oh,
felt
yeah.
in danger? Yeah.
Yeah, I stopped stripping because I was assaulted at a club and just like felt like it was so normalized that like I didn't even put up a fuss about it. I just kind of moved on. And so that's when I realized like I wasn't doing it in a healthy way, and that I didn't feel like I was able to protect myself in the ways I'd need to be.
Wow. So, I'm glad you got out. That's all I can say. But as it informed your work, because I know one of your pieces is about, isn't it? Stripping?
Yeah, so the first production that I did at Off the Wall was a one-woman show called Sex Work that was about my experiences stripping. So it was a very autobiographical show, and it was a mixture of monologues and dance.
Well, so that must have felt particularly empowering to use that experience and be able to create.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was really good for me, partly because when I quit the industry, I really just kind of compartmentalized all of it, all of the good, all of the bad, just all of it, and kind of moved on with my life. And then once I had the opportunity to do the show, I realized, I have to actually like open this box and think about like, how did this change me? What did I learn?
So
to be able to share that.
That's sort of wonderfully therapeutic.
It was also like terrifying. But I'm really glad that my artistic process was able to also serve that process of personal growth for me.
So you probably felt more naked than you ever had in front of an audience.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't take my clothes off in that show because no one was going to pay me enough for the tickets to do that.
Wow.
But
wow.
Yeah, it was more of an emotional striptease.
Boy, so your experience is amazing. And you know, your use of language is so skilled. You should write a book too. In your spare time.
Yeah, well, we'll see when I'm done with the show.
So the show, again, it opens tomorrow?
It opens tomorrow, and it runs through the 17th.
So how many performances is that? 8?
That's 7.
Seven
so we're doing,
performances.
Yeah,
wow.
Thursday through Sunday this weekend and Thursday through Saturday next weekend.
And this is at in Carnegie.
Off the Wall Productions at Carnegie Stage.
At Carnegie Stage, and I have been there. It is the stuff they do there is simply wonderful. I mean, and it just I can't tell you how my mind has been expanded by seeing some of their productions.
Yeah, they choose really interesting works that tackle like deep and resonant subjects that do experimental things. Right. And they're always really supportive of female voices and queer voices. So I feel really lucky to have this relationship with Off the Wall Productions and with Carnegie Stage and to get to make another work there.
So speaking of your student loans and stuff, I don't think of dancers as making a lot of money either. So it's still a struggle, I'm sure.
I think like a lot of
starving artists,
like a lot of artists, and I think also just like a lot of other millennials who, even if they went to college, graduated during the financial crisis. I've just had a very like patchwork work history. But I have other skills and other jobs that I also do, and it's been working out.
So like so many millennials, you have cobbled together. I mean, so you do other oh God, I don't think I would have done well in the environment you're having to navigate. But I give you extraordinary credit for doing it. I'm getting people saying thank you for your guests because they've enjoyed listening to you.
Wow.
How do people get tickets for your performance?
Yeah, so they can get tickets at InsideOffTheWall.com. And InsideOffTheWall.com. And there's also a Facebook event. So if they search Queer Jewish on Facebook, there will be an event page and a ticket link there as well. Folks can feel free to follow my artist page. It's just Moriah Ella Mason on Facebook.
Okay, it's on my Facebook page as well. And so you can get all of that through. Well, I'm sorry I'm going to be out of town this weekend. But maybe I can get there next weekend.
We'd love to have you.
I'm telling you, anytime you go, it expands your mind. And not only that, it has nothing to do with you-know-who and all that other stuff. So in that regard, it is a joyous distraction and a reminder that our lives are full of so much wondrousness, right? So I hope you can do it. I hope we get
can I share one other thing?
You betcha.
If you are coming to a Friday or Saturday night performance, if you come a little early at 7:45, we're going to be observing Shabbat and Havdalah before the show. So if that's something that's important to you, or you're just curious to experience one of those rituals, feel free to come out a little early.
Oh, that's wonderful. You're advertising in the Jewish Chronicle, aren't you? Maybe not.
It might not be. I'm not sure. We reached out to them, but I haven't heard anything yet.
No, should. That goes to every Jewish home. Okay, just saying. Just saying. Here's Terry. Thanks. She convinced us to go to her show.
Aw, thanks, Terry.
There, you sold some tickets. Yeah.
Say hi afterwards.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
God,
Thanks so much.
you're when we say we have hope for the future, when we do, it's because of people like you navigating this crazy landscape. Thank you.
Thanks.
Seriously. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Sally Wiggin, my guest.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.